For the past couple of days, as we've been sitting, one by one, everybody gets to go into the interview room, this room back here behind the meditation hall. And I got to talk to them over the past couple of days. And I get to ask stupid questions. So one of the stupid questions that I was able to ask over the past couple of days was this question from the 1600s, the 17th century. Gottlieb Leibniz asked this question: why is there something rather than nothing? Why is there something rather than nothing? So I remember when I was in my teens and I first heard that. I remember seeing it on television. I remember looking at the wall, looking at the ceiling, and looking at my hands. And for the first time, I realized this is not inevitable. It didn't have to be like this. There could have been just nothing. That actually makes more sense. It's like maybe there just wouldn't have been anything. And I remember the wonder, wow, there is something. And it's not just anything, it's really quite magical. And maybe at the same time realize, wait a minute, I'm somebody. It could have been, anybody, but it's me here. It's not inevitable that I was born, right? So why is there something rather than nothing? Why am I here rather than any of the other possibilities of people or things? Why is it just like this? Why is this solid here? So when Leibniz asked that question, he was actually asking it in the context of proving that there was a God, because the argument went, if there's something, there had to be a maker. If you have a glass, somebody had to make the glass. Someone had to imagine it, design it, and make it. So just the fact that a glass exists proves that there was a maker, right? So this is cause and effect. The fact that there's a glass proves that there was a maker of the glass. And the fact that we exist, that there is something, would prove that there was a God. That was the late 1600s, early 1700s. So if science thought that they were going to get a more practical answer than there is a God, they were in for a good joke, because the more we learned, not only that is there a star, do we have a sun and there are stars? There are billions of them. And we're in a galaxy. And not only that, but there are other galaxies. And not only that, there are billions of other galaxies, supercluster galaxies. And and then looking at the origins of life, looking at the origins, with Darwin of where humans come from, crazy. And then looking small and looking at the fact that all of this comes from the same elements that are all made of the same protons, neutrons, and electrons. So why is there something rather than nothing? And that led to this explosion of wonder of the sciences. But not only that, but the sciences also actually upended this whole question itself. Why is there something rather than nothing? Because when we look at the atom, we realize there are billions of times more empty space in this atom than there is anything like something solid. And we look out into outer space, same thing. There's just so much more space than anything like solid, anything solid. So actually, we're finding there's a lot more nothing than we ever dreamed there would be. Yeah. Why is there something rather than nothing? So Buddhism would look at this statement, why is there something rather than nothing? And say, wait a minute, something and nothing are the same thing. Form is emptiness. Yeah. And it comes from, that's not just philosophical, there's something very practical about that. Because as the poem goes, as we read so often in our tradition, the human route, yeah, coming empty-handed, going empty-handed. When you're born, where do you come from? When you die, where do you go? So we go from nobody, we become somebody, and then we die and become nobody again. So that nothing to something to nothing again. Yeah. And this great question, you know, where did I come? You know, before we were born, where did we come from? After we die, where do we go? You know, and so it's a big question, and a lot of our fears come from these ideas of something and nothing. Because if I'm something, then I can hold on to it. But our tradition reminds us it's going to change. It's going to change. So this something is going to become nothing. We can remind ourselves by looking back 200 years, all these people and animals and trees and everything, where are they now? 200 years ago, all those people, all those faces, all those personalities, all of those relationships, where are they now? Changing, changing, changing. Yeah. So we went from nobody, now we're somebody, and we're looking in the future. And so many people, this fear of dying, you know, where does it come from? It comes from this idea of being nothing, of being nobody. And if we really go into that, there's, you know, we might think, actually, we have no experience of being nothing, right? We don't remember before we were born, unless, you know, you have special memories of past lives. But, you know, after we die, you know, if there's nothing, then we won't experience it. But there's that fear. That fear doesn't go away. It's just like the sadness when somebody that we love dies. And we know that this is the way of this world, of human beings, of this planet of life, that things are born and they live and they die. And no matter how enlightened we are, when someone we really love dies, it's going to break our heart and we're going to be really sad. And that's just our human path. And there's nothing spiritual about not feeling that, right? We love and we lose and we feel grief. And that is our human condition. And even on this retreat, we had an old member. He wasn't coming to our Zen center, but he died suddenly, and his name was here on the altar until a few days ago. And even this week, one of our members came to the retreat, and he was walking in meditation, and he saw that name on the altar, and it, bam, it hit his mind. Oh my goodness, he was young. What happened? He's gone. He was somebody. Now he's nobody. Now he's dead. And so, of course, that reminds us that we are on that same path. Why is there something rather than nothing? Yeah. So when we ask this question, why is there something rather than nothing? In our Zen tradition, we confront this question and we see that it has, of course, an assumption in it. Why is there something rather than nothing? It assumes there's something, right? It makes this assumption. So in our Zen tradition, we say it's already made a mistake. Already made a mistake. It's making this assumption that there is something. Yeah. And when you make that assumption, there's something, when you have something, we think of it as solid. These stands, it looks like it's solid. In our minds, we know that there are actually 3 tables here that are put on top of each other, but it looks so solid. This glass looks so solid. One drop outside on the concrete and it's gone. One drop in the sink at the wrong height and it's no longer a glass. All the material is still there, but it's no longer a glass. It's something, and then that thingness that we think of it as will be gone. So in our tradition, we talk about that mistake of making something, of making, right? That assumption that there is something, we say we're making. And in this case, it's literally, we're making something, all right? So this word making, when we talk about, in our Zen tradition, making, we talk about don't make, don't hold, don't attach, don't check. And there are other words too. Those are the 4 that I've always heard. I think those are the 4 that Zen Master Bobby uses. Don't make, don't hold, don't check, don't attach. But this making it's an idea and we make it solid. We make it solid. This is a glass. This is a mala. This is a clock. And these are just flow of energy. And before they weren't these things. Now they are. Later they won't be. But we make them. And the problem of making this is that we so easily get attached to it. Yeah. There's another problem in that statement, though. Why is there something rather than nothing? We're also making something else, right? We're making nothing too, right? Yeah. Like we're afraid of when we die, that nothing. Will we be nobody? Will we be somehow alone? Will we be unattached? We're gonna be floating? Yeah. That nothing is, I think it's a deep-seated fear in that we carry about this nothing, what might happen after we die, or what might happen if our life goes terribly wrong, if we lose all of our loved ones. This feeling of being empty. Yeah. So we make this nothing. We make something and we make nothing. So back to the world of our hands and the ceiling and the floor. What would it be like to live without making something and without making nothing? It would be just this brown floor, just this white wall, just me talking to you, just this moment. What is this? Yeah. This is what our practice is. We're making something. This afternoon, I totally blew the Quan Symbol Thal Chant. We were going along, and I was going to try a crazy new little twist at one of the transitions, and I just crashed the plane right into the ground. you know, and hold on to that. No, no, just let it go. Actually, it worked out well because we got a longer break. but but that's a funny example, but there are so many examples that aren't funny, really serious in our world. We make that, and we, hold it with an open palm. There's a story that Zen Master Sung Song used to talk about making. There's a story he used to tell. So at one time, there was a Zen master named Hyang Bong. Zen master Hyang Bong. And a student came to visit Zen master Hyang Bong. And he said, please teach me the Dharma. Please teach me the Dharma. Zen master Hyang Bong said, my Dharma is too expensive. My Dharma is too expensive. And the student, he went to his pockets and says, well, how much does it cost? And he started pulling out his wallet. And Zen Master Hyang Bong said, oh, no, even if you had piles of gold, my Dharma is too expensive. So the student went off and he started to practice Zen by himself. And later he came back and he said, I know I'm going to give you my life. I'm going to pay you for your Dharma with my life. And he said, even if you had 100 lives, I have no use for them. My Dharma is way more expensive than that. So the student went off and continued to practice. He understand. Oh, it's mind. Okay. So he came back and he bowed and he says, okay, I'm going to give you my mind. Then Master Hyang Bong said, your mind is just this garbage pit. And if you had 100 minds, my Dharma would still be more expensive. So the student went off and he practiced more and more. The student realized emptiness. So he understood this nothing. Okay. Wow. So he comes back and now he's high on his horse and he says, I know how expensive your Dharma is. Then Master says, how expensive? Nah, my Dharma is more expensive than that. Get out of here. So dejected, the student goes off and practices some more. This time he has this deep realization. He comes back and he says, now I understand. The sky is blue and the grass is green. And the Zen master says, nope, my Dharma is more expensive than that. Well, the student this time says, go to hell. You can take your Dharma and shove it up your ass. And he turns around and he walks straight towards the door. And he's just about out the door. And Zen Master Hyang Bong says, wait, just a minute. Student turns around, says, take care of my Dharma. Yeah. So this is a beautiful story about making something. He making something in his mind, about money, about value. Yeah. Yeah. So the Zen master caught him on that first motion. He was going for his wallets. He realized he had hooked him on this idea of I need to there's some kind of exchange that has to happen and value. Yeah. And he got hooked on there. And so that student was making something even as he was practicing. He was having all of these good insights. Still, some part of his mind was hooked. Yeah. I need to somehow prove or somehow pay for this. So, and it wasn't until he was able to just walk right straight through that, that he was able to, um, he was able to let go of it. So for me, this practice finds its ultimate in our ability to listen. Um, Listen to other people, listen to ourselves, listen to the world. The koan that we all did in the room, um, the poem for the mountain and uh, on the bones of the ancient mountain, the stream cleans the mind of the ancient Buddha. Yeah. Just listening to the stream, just listening to the stream. Just that moment, just this, asking the pine tree, what does the pine tree say, and just listen, just listen. So listening to other people and really, when we listen to other people and we are really open and we really hear and we actually let what we hear from the other person change us, we're actually affected. It takes out from our practice, from me personally, I'll just talk in first person, it blows away this whole idea of the hero's journey, right? There's something of the hero's journey in that story about Zen Master Hyang and it's too expensive, right? I'm going to practice, I'm going to get it, I'm going to earn it. Paradoxically, our practice, though, is about being more receptive, more open, more able to be affected, to listen to other people. We need that space. So instead of the hero's journey of climbing the mountain, there's something paradoxical about our practice, about being willing to surrender, willing to put it down. Putting down, we made something about it's too expensive. The story at the climax was actually putting that down, letting that go, letting that rest. So listening to another person, there's an Irish saying that in a really good conversation, neither person survives, right? Because both parties are changed. If they really speak and they really hear each other, then neither side actually survives the conversation. Yeah. And so what that speaks to me again and again is don't make anything. For those of us who are professional listeners, that we listen for our job, there's this temptation to be, I am the healer. I am the teacher, I am the professional, and you are the patient, you are the client. And what kind of meeting can happen when I think of myself, if I make that, if I know who I am the healer, I am the, the provider, right? The provider of services, and I make that, and I am that. I am somebody, yeah. Because I couldn't be nobody, of course. How could I charge money if I were nobody? I'm somebody with a title. Yeah. And then how could I actually meet this person? How could I hear that story and be affected? Yeah. So this practice is about putting that down, putting that somebody down, also putting down that nobody. If we put down both of those, who are we? If we put down there is something, there is nothing, if we put that down, just this moment, what are we doing right now? Just do that. Then we can wake up, we can see the truth, and we can actually be present for other people. We can be responsive. Don't make anything. Then there are possibilities. Then there are possibilities.